What's up, my fellow Shield Brothers? It is the Shield Brother back again for the History Armada. We are here on another Folklore Friday with another story. Today, we're going back across the pond to Europe and the British Isles. Today we are talking about the Changelings. A Changeling, often historically referred to as an oaf, it is a human-like creature who was often imbecilic, found in folklore and folk religion throughout Europe and the British Isles. A changeling was believed to be a fairy or fae offspring that had been left in the place of a human stolen by the fairies. So this derives from the Middle Ages, where a bad behaved child or a sickly child was often thought to be possessed or taken, because or oftentimes also a changeling would be the reason that a child was malformed, malnourished, or physically or mentally handicapped. They would blame it on the fae or something of akin to it, such as demonic possession or stealing or that kind of thing. You know, a child being stolen by the devil and replaced with a demon, that kind of thing. Very sad history to the story and lore of the changelings, but we're going to go over that, and then I'm going to read you a short folk story titled Not Mine. So, a changeling is typically identifiable via a number of traits. In Irish legend, a fae child may appear sickly and won't grow to normal size of a normal child, and may have notably physical characteristics such as a beard or long teeth. They may also display intelligence far beyond their apparent years, as well as possess uncanny insight. A common way that a changeling could identify itself is through displaying unusual behavior when it thinks it's alone, such as jumping about, dancing, or playing an instrument, though this last example is found only within Irish and Scottish legends. A human child may be taken due to many factors to act as a servant, the love of a human child, or malice. Most often it was thought that the fairies exchanged the children. In rare cases, the very elderly of the fae people would be exchanged in the place of a human baby. This is a quote from a folklorist, Dr. D.L. Ashleman. So changelings, like I said, they were given this kind of the scapegoat for the reason a child had turned out for how they had. In medieval Scandinavia, it was believed that trolls considered to be more respectable to be raised by human than by their own kind. So they would consequently seize any opportunity to give their own children a human upbringing. Some believed that trolls would take only unbaptized children, since once a child had been baptized and therefore received into the Catholic faith, the trolls were powerless to abduct it. Beauty in human children and young women, particularly traits which evoked brightness or reflectivity, such as bright blonde hair or blue or silver eyes, were said to attract the fairies, as they perhaps found preciousness in these traits. Additionally, in Scottish folklore, the children might be replacements for fae children in the Tithe to Hell. This is best known from the Ballad of Tam Lin. According to common Scottish myths, a child born with a cowl, which is part of the amniotic membrane, across their face when they are born, is said to be the marking sign of a changeling. So they would then soon die afterwards because they were of fae birth. Other folklore says that human milk is necessary for fae children to survive. In these cases, either the newborn human child would be switched with a fairy baby to be suckled by the human mother, or the human mother would be taken back to the fairy world to breastfeed the fairy babies. It is also thought that human midwives were necessary to bring fae babies into the world. Some stories of changelings who forget that they are not human and proceed to live a human life. Also, there are changelings who do not forget, and also those who just want to cause mayhem. The human child would often may stay with that fae family forever, either of their own will or not, and feeling connected to the fate of the changeling, there are families who merely turn their changeling loose to the wilderness. Some folklorists now believe that fairies were memories of inhabitants of various regions in Europe who had been driven into hiding by invaders. They held that changelings had actually occurred. The hiding people would exchange their own sickly children for the healthy children of the occupying invader. So this is kind of the changeling kind of plays into the story of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, where the the gypsy mothers child is replaced, beautiful Esmeralda is replaced with the Quasimodo. So Quasimodo's, so then the gypsy mother leaves Quasimodo at the steps, thinking, you know, that it was not her child, because it was not. And she was thought to be a madwoman because she was claiming that it was not her child and that her child had been taken, which in reality actually was true. Esmeralda had been switched for Quasimodo. So that plays into that story as well. So changelings in particular, and of like beings, occur in Cornwall with the Men-Alto Stones and the Fae and the Pixies. In Germany, the changeling is known as the Veshelbalg, or the Veshelkind. In Ireland, they occur with the Fae. The Isle of Man, they occur also with the fairy child of Close and Lay, being that story. The lowlands of Scotland and northern England, there are stories of the fairy hills and the changelings there too, as well as the elves. Poland, there is the Mamuna, and Bojinki. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's the Slavic spirit that exchange babies from the cradle. Also, there is Scandinavian, Nordic traditional beliefs that we talked about earlier with the baptizing and the trolls taking the children. Additionally, there's also Spain, in Asturias, which is northern Spain. There is the legend of the Zana, which is a sort of nymph that would deliver babies and swap babies. And then finally, there's also Wales and Africa, even, with the Igbo people of eastern Nigeria, traditionally believing in that a woman who lost numerous children, whether stillborn or early infancy, were being tormented by a malicious spirit who was stealing their children from them. So it occurs all across their northern Europe, western Europe, and even down into Africa, with these stories of the changelings and the fae or nymphs or pixies either swapping or taking children. So with that, let's now read Not Mine, which is a folk story from Scotland about a perceived changeling. Not mine. My love would not have loved this. It was the fae's child, not hers. Her gentle smile would not have graced her lips if she had looked upon it, I am sure. Those lips which tasted of all the blood in the room when I last touched them, after her screams ceased, and the screams of this creature began. Screaming, screaming. The midwife took it away, and I held her, who left me for this. It screamed, every day and every night. I tried everything a father could. I bathed it, I kept it in warm, I soaked rags in milk for it to suckle on, and I nestled it within my arms as I stumbled through delirious lullabies. Nothing soothed it. It refused sleep and denied me the same. She wouldn't have wanted to hold it either, this nasty writhing thing. Not a child, but a demon. It was the midwife who had first said so. Changeling. The word had slithered through the village like a snake house to house. Changeling, changeling, changeling. Oh, aye, said my neighbors. They heard its screams all day and night as well as I did. In the night, keeping their own children awake. I took it to the healer. She rubbed it with salves and burned St. John's wort. It screamed more. Back home it was sick. Then it ate everything, so I stopped feeding it. All the milk in the village turned sour overnight. I laid mistletoe and iron shears in the cradle. It shrank away from them, glaring at me beneath unearthly shrieks with brown eyes that were like hers, but also not. They held no warmth for me and reflected none of her soft light. Slitted, weepy things, all dark and empty. Weeks passed. A cow died. A crop spoiled. It rained, and my neighbors called changeling, changeling. When my neighbor's daughter fell ill, a knock came at my door. Take it, you know where. Take it now before anything else happens to my Elspeth. Other faces peered out of doorways, nodding and murmuring in agreement at this sentiment. The knoll, only way. I shut my door. It was bright autumn twilight. No clouds, just an endless sharp sky, pale blue fringed with red and orange. A twilight before a frost, when a waning moon would rise, and ice and silver would leach all life from the countryside, a night to carry away what was no longer desired. I swallowed it into a blanket and left my cottage house. The faces watched me go. Some cast their eyes down as I passed, others bore into me to make sure that I went. I felt them on my back long after I was beyond their way. To the knoll. where the Fae gathered and revealed themselves in the moonlight, reveling in the glow, where the chime of bells could be heard and our cattle refused to graze. Small and unassuming, but a portal to Elfheim, if ever there was one. Everyone knew it and pretended they didn't. As I crouched and laid it on the grass, I could almost feel their unseen eyes watching me. They were in the stirring breeze, tugging at the blanket as I settled it around the creature. I paused for a moment, gazing at it, wondering. Thoughts drifting, as they do now when you have not slept for so long and you cannot tell right from wrong. Holding her body, tears, my tears, falling on its skin, faces on thresholds. Only way, the Fae were watching. They must want it back. It was their fault after all, not mine. I left it there. I left it screaming. I walked home. Tomorrow. Tomorrow I would hold my own child. Her child. A real child. I slept. In the morning, I buried a frosted corpse. So it's kind of sad, but it is a folk song based on the recorded events in Ardeshires in 1845 statistical account. There was a father with a sick child, which he and his neighbors believed to be a changeling. To rectify this, they took it to Henry's Knoll, a local hill, said to be where the Fae gathered, as stated in the story. They were hoping that would return the real child and undo the damage it had done to the town's crops and livestock and such. However, in actuality, he returned to find the child had perished to the frost. The other characters and details given here are of the own creation of this writer. Not Mine was also published in Ex Libris for the University of Aberdeen's Creative Writing Society Anthology 2019. I found it to be a really good folk story that really captured the essence of the short stories and folklore around the changelings. It's by Amelia Starling. It's a newer story, but I feel it really captured the changeling myth. So I hope you enjoyed learning about the different changeling myths of Europe and the British Isles. It's kind of sad. Perhaps we'll go more into some Fae folklore and stories and changeling stories oft on another Folklore Friday. But as for now, as always, like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Unlike, dislike if you did not like. If you have any ideas what to read next or how to do things differently, go ahead and leave that in the comments for me. But as always, I am the Shield Brother for the History Armada, and I'll catch y'all next time.